If leadership were just about making snap decisions, being a CEO would be much easier, and you probably wouldn't need to be spending your time watching videos on YouTube to find out how to be a better leader. However, when we routinely just move fast and break things, we tend to mostly break things and not solve the actual problems. Yeah, it is important as a leader to be able to move quickly, to not stay with an issue for too long. However, when we mistake this agility with what actually matters, we often end up just plastering haphazard temporary solutions over real matters in a way that never actually solves them, and in a way that usually ends up with shallow leadership. We make these fast decisions, but we don't actually make any real progress. In this video, I want to talk about exactly how these fast decisions result in slow disasters, why we fall for this, and how you as a leader can avoid it to create a team that's much more robust. By the way, if you're new here, hi, I'm Aviv Ben-Yosef. I'm a tech executive, coach, and consultant, and I help people just like you create tech teams they're proud of, tech teams worth leading, because life's too short to do anything else. And as part of that today, we'll talk exactly about one of the major issues that I see repeatedly with teams that are not as good as they ought to be, and that is that they never solve issues for real. They keep on having these temporary fixes or these knee-jerk reactions to issues without ever getting to the bottom of things, meaning that they are bound to keep repeating the same sorts of mistakes without ever actually improving. That's, in my book, not a healthy way of creating a team you're proud of. I'm guessing you can agree. So first of all, let's talk about why this even happens so much. A lot of people I work with have this instinct that they have to act fast. If you stay with an issue too much, people become too aware of it. You might be getting this impression that, oh yeah, the engineering team always has issues, they take too long to decide, whatever, and you get this mistake in your head where, no, I just have to get moving. Or you see a solution right in front of you and it feels easy. That's like I see a lever, I'm going to push it, I'm going to pull it without realizing, yeah, is it even solving the thing for real? And I see this resulting in issues repeatedly with things that when I actually put a mirror in front of people, they realize how ridiculous it is. But oftentimes in our day-to-day, we don't realize that this is what we're doing. I can give you some real life examples, like the CDO I was working with that went from we have to fire that director, he's not a good manager, to no, he's actually okay, to no, he cannot manage anyone, he can move aside, but he cannot be a manager, back to, yeah, that person should still be in charge of half of my team and get actually some more responsibility, all within a week and a half, every time, depending on things that made no sense, like can I keep that pay bracket for that person or not? And just based on that, whenever the CEO got some feedback from the board about maybe needing to do a cut here or there, he started rationalizing about, yeah, that person is not a good leader. No, that person is actually a good leader. And as ridiculous as that sounds, this is a person with many years of experience and actually some nice track record. And yet when this happened, he went into this loop that's just basically reactive, not even realizing what he's doing. And I don't know about you, but this doesn't feel to me like leadership. And I keep seeing this sort of pattern repeating itself. It's not just one person. Like the company where every week, based on whether we're gonna get some more budget for the next year or actually have a budget cut or remain the same, the VP of engineering made an entirely different case about the people in the team. If he thought he needs to cut, he was like, yeah, those 4 people, they're not good enough, they're not what I want in our culture, they will never reach the bar, we need to cut them, it's actually the right thing to do. A week later, when he was told, oh, actually we don't need to cut anyone, he was like, oh, okay, fine, and let's just keep going. And like, you just made a case about those people not being good enough. Is that like gone just because you don't need to do it right now? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna, okay, give him another shot, put him on a pip, actually give him some feedback? Let's think about this. What's happening? Either you were saying a bunch of nonsense a week ago or you're saying nonsense now. It cannot both be true. So what is it? And another example is the founder that just kept plowing through people every time there was an issue. Okay, out of that person, let's get another person there, or promote that person real quick. Every time in a almost split-second decision, let's just have someone there so someone new gets responsibility for that area or for that department all over the organization, not realizing that there's this repeating pattern of people getting into positions and not doing the work well, even with good track records. And I'm like, okay, let's take a second, and instead of just swapping executives like you swap underpants, maybe take a second and realize something here systematically is wrong, right? Maybe you're not hiring the right people, maybe you're not giving them the right tools, maybe you're not setting them up for success, maybe your expectations are unhinged. Whatever it is, we need to take a second and realize what's actually happening, as opposed to just, okay, let's take that person out, slap a new person there, and just keep on running forward because we see that the issue is repeating itself. When you're doing this, you're essentially stuck in this reactive loop. You're never taking a second to dig down and realize what's actually happening. And I realize that it feels like at least you're moving fast. And I realize that you don't want to get stuck too much in paralysis, doing all of this analyzing and trying to understand what's actually the issue, whatever. Yeah, startups, we're going to move fast. However, when we never realize what we're doing, it's just like keeping popping an ibuprofen every morning because you keep waking up with a headache, never realizing that maybe there's something else here. Maybe you better stop drinking so much before going to bed, or maybe, God forbid, you actually have something more serious going on and you're just masking it because you're treating the symptoms and not the actual root cause. Do you want to be that person that eventually gets that, test result and realize, oh my God, I've been years too late to this? No, you can actually do things right now. You can actually be a responsible leader in your organization right now. You don't have to wait for the reality to slap you in the face. This illustration of decisiveness is, again, just a theater of reactivity, and you don't want to get there. This ends up, with time, really harming teams because all of this back and forth, moving from one solution to the next, changing our minds, means that we're wasting a lot of time and a lot of energy in breaking momentum and regaining it. It means that your team eventually sort of learns that nothing really matters long term. Things are going to change almost instantly. Whenever the wind changes course, whenever it changes directions, we're going to throw everything out and going to decide on something else. So do I ever actually need to think about things long term? Do I need to think about the right solution? No, we're just doing whatever is going to get us through the week. And that might work when you're 3 people working in a tiny startup, but will never get you there as you're growing, as you need more scale and more maturity going on, as things become more complicated and your bar needs to be raised with time, not stay the same, and therefore you actually have to do things differently. All of these quick fixes create teams that are essentially sick. They signal indecisiveness outside, they make people focus only on short-term goals and are not how you want to create a robust team. With time, what you actually want to do is start stacking those bricks one by one, where every time we do that, we're actually getting something better. Instead, many are essentially, putting the carpet over holes in the floors so no one realizes it. That's not stacking bricks, just a disaster waiting to happen. And we want to create something that will essentially make the team better. Not everything's going to be perfect, and you don't always have to drill down all the way into the root cause and fix everything so it's perfect. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that you have to realize what's actually happening under there, so you know that you're not missing anything substantial, and you know that you're not going to be solving the same mistakes again and again and again, and most of the times end up actually accumulating more and more cost, because these end up getting worse every time. So don't do that. This is the cost of shallow leadership. You end up solving the same things again and again. Your team wears out. The confidence in what you say wears out, and you end up not being a leader anymore. And instead, what we want to do is to shift from these knee-jerk reactions to treating things for real, not being a shallow leader. That means that, for example, when something happens, first of all, take a breather. Unless we're talking about something almost literally on fire, most of the times you don't have to make a snap decision. If you're not sure about the root cause, or if this is something that has already happened in the past and you thought you had solved this, instead of immediately rushing for a fix, wait a second and think, what is happening? Why is this repeating? Just first of all, start by taking a pause. Don't immediately answer. Then move to the interrogate and introspect phase. Ask some healthy questions. Why is this happening? Why is this happening again if it has happened in the past? What did we have in place that was supposed to avoid this and didn't function? Or when this happened in the past, why what we thought was the reason is no longer the reason because we did something and didn't fix it. So what was wrong over there? Debug your past debugging. Or think about whatever knee-jerk reaction you have about what you want to do. Don't just do it, but think for a second and actually explain what you expect to happen. So when someone talks to me and says, no, this is not working out, we need a better CTO there, or we need to replace that system. I say, okay, let's assume you were to do that. What actually do you think is going to change? What material difference is that decision or that person or that role or that process or that system is going to make that you didn't have before? What's the actual difference between the current reality and the reality you have in mind? When you actually explain that, it's not just, someone else, someone better, but actually, what do you see lacking in whoever is already doing this, and what do you want to see improved? When you actually explain that, first of all, we can do some actual thinking. Maybe we can get some data, like, oh, you think that we need to solve this, but this is actually only happening once every 6 months. Maybe it's not that big of an issue. Or whatever piece of data you might get. Or, again, think about the fix you're thinking about and then question yourself, will this actually solve it? If this happens again, if we have this in place, will we actually catch it in time? Or will this actually avoid it entirely? If so, good. We can move on to thinking, is your approach the best approach to get there? Maybe there's a better way of getting there, a quicker one, a cheaper one. Maybe your knee-jerk reaction for getting that change on reality is not the best solution. Now that you know what change you want, maybe we can think about a better way of getting there. Maybe you don't need to hire someone from outside. Maybe you can change the structure internally. So actually we have a few people always with that type of mind, so it's less likely to happen. Whatever, I'm just throwing out ideas, but actually have that. Maybe you realize as you're doing this thinking that, hey, actually this fix that I'm thinking about would probably not solve the root cause. So maybe it's not the right thing to do. Maybe we can think about a different thing. Have this second of introspection and interrogation to think, what do I want to do? What actually will fix this? And what will be the cost? What are the chances of this, of succeeding, etc.? Next, and this is very important, you need to challenge your role. You need to think about your responsibility in getting into this mess in the first place. Because if you just keep on slapping solutions and you never take a second and realize, hey, am I the common link between this disaster and the outage we had last week, between this person leaving and the feedback we got from them a month ago? Realize whether your role here is not of a good factor, but of someone that actually ends up being responsible for some of the issues. Because this is sort of feedback that senior leaders are not likely to get unless you're working with a coach or someone else like me. And if you don't take a second and think, what am I doing here? And whether am I helping the issue, or am I always trying to cover it up or avoiding treating what's actually causing this? you need to think and be frank and talk candidly, at least with yourself. I'm assuming you can allow yourself that bit of openness with yourself and be real about what you're doing, whether you're helping or not. And once you have that in place, maybe you can actually start moving forward and fixing your own behavior in a good way that is aligned with the root causes, aligned with whatever behaviors you have that no longer make sense. Maybe it made sense when you were in charge of a smaller team, but no longer work, and you need to change your approaches. That happens all the time in healthy teams that keep progressing. What got you here won't get you there. And lastly, as you're moving forward, I want you to design for performance. When you're moving ahead, when you make a decision, know how you're going to keep track of it, and actually maybe write down why you made the decision, what your expectations are, so that when you actually end up doing it, and if it succeeds, you know, okay, when I have this sort of issues, this has worked for us in the past. But if it repeats, if you realize that you didn't get to the root cause, having your thinking will help ensure that whatever solution you now go to, when you have to do the cycle again of the interrogation, introspection, and getting data, you will be at least equipped with what your original thinking really was as it was happening. Because a lot of the times when we think about things back, we no longer actually possess the same sort of thinking. We've changed, and therefore many things that maybe now seem trivial to us and we assume that we had taken that into account weren't the case back when we made the original decision. So we actually gain a lot from having this log. So design for this performance in mind. When you're making these decisions, when you're making the fixes, take a second and write those down, what you expect to happen, how you're going to track that your fix is actually working, so you keep improving, so you actually are stacking these bricks one by one, as opposed to, again, slapping a carpet over an ugly piece of the floor. When you feel the urge to leap into action, take a second, take a breather, be a conscious and present and mindful leader, and think about how you're actually going to make things better. You're going to create a much healthier organization. You're going to be making your role much easier, and you're going to be setting yourself up for success. That's it. Thank you. I'll be here in the next video, so if you enjoyed this one, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're into that sort of stuff, check out Unplug with Aviv. My new offering link is in the video description with all of the details. Ciao.